friend of mine worked the late shift at a public library outside Des Moines when he was in grad school, and one night something happened that made him stop closing the building alone. After that, the place closed at 9, but the staff usually stayed another half hour finishing returns and locking sections. That night, a man came in about 20 minutes before closing. Nothing unusual about that, except he did not go toward the shelves or the computers. He walked straight to the desk and asked a simple question. He wanted to know if the lower archive floor was still open. Most people never even know that level exists because it holds old newspapers and local records. My friend told him it closed earlier in the evening and that the public was not allowed down there after 8. The man nodded like he had expected that answer and thanked him. Then he walked away into the stacks. My friend noticed he did not grab any books or sit anywhere. He just moved slowly between aisles, while occasionally glancing toward the hallway that leads to the staff staircase. At 9, the lights dimmed and the closing announcement played. The remaining people packed up and left through the front doors. My friend watched them go and locked the entrance like they always did. His coworker that night was upstairs checking study rooms. So my friend started doing the first floor walk through by himself. The aisles were quiet, except for the rolling sound of the return cart as he pushed it along. Halfway down the history section, he heard a soft metal clink somewhere behind the shelves. It sounded like a handle hitting a door. He stepped into the cross aisle and looked toward the staff hallway. The door to the archive staircase was slightly open. That door is normally locked with a keypad because the archive level is staff only. He walked over thinking maybe his coworker had gone down there earlier. When he reached the door, he saw the keypad cover hanging open like someone had been messing with the wires. His stomach dropped a little because no one should have been touching that panel. He pushed the door open and looked down the staircase. The lights below were already on. That meant someone had gone down there recently. He called his coworker's name, but heard nothing except the faint echo of his voice bouncing through the concrete hallway below. The archive floor is narrow and quiet because the shelves hold old newspaper reels and boxes of records. He stepped down a few stairs and heard something move down there. Not loud, just the sound of a cartwheel turning slightly. He stopped and listened. Then he heard slow footsteps moving between the shelves below him. The problem was the archive level only has one staircase, and he was standing in it. That meant whoever was down there had not come back up yet. He backed up the stairs and closed the door. Then he called upstairs for his coworker. The coworker came down right away, and my friend told him someone was in the archive level. They opened the door together and went down with flashlights. The aisle lights were on, but the rows were empty when they checked them. Every shelf looked untouched, except for one thing. A rolling archive ladder had been pulled out and left in the middle of the floor. On top of it was a small backpack. They did not touch it and called campus security. When officers arrived, they opened the bag carefully and found a few strange things inside: a flashlight, a pair of gloves, a folding knife, and a printed floor map of the library with several areas circled in pen. including the staff hallway and the closing desk. Security searched the entire building. After that, they checked bathrooms, offices, even the storage rooms upstairs. Nobody was found anywhere inside. One of the officers asked to see the camera footage from earlier that night. The lobby camera clearly showed the man who asked about the archive floor entering the building. It also showed him walking toward the stacks about 15 minutes before closing. The cameras never recorded him leaving. Security assumed he must have slipped out while the staff were distracted during closing. That explanation sounded reasonable until the officer checked the archive camera feed. That camera had been unplugged sometime earlier that evening. When they traced the cable, they realized something else. The wire had been cut clean with a blade. A week later, the library director told staff something they had not mentioned publicly. The same backpack had been reported missing from a locker at another campus library across town 2 months earlier. After a night, employee said someone had been walking behind him between the shelves after closing. The person in that building was never identified either, and the strange part is that their cameras also stopped working right before the employee heard footsteps in the stacks. But that isn't the only strange thing I've heard about someone working late in a library. A guy I used to work with told me about something that happened when he had a part-time job at a county library outside Lincoln, and the way he described it made it sound less like a weird night and more like someone testing how far they could push things. The building stayed open until 9, but the last half hour was usually quiet because most people cleared out once the announcements started. That night, there were only 3 staff in the building. My friend was doing the closing walk-through on the 2nd floor, where the reference stacks were. Those aisles were tall and tight, with metal shelves, and not much light except the long fluorescent strips overhead. Around 8:40, he noticed a man sitting at one of the back tables near the windows. The guy had a notebook open, but he was not writing anything. He was just watching the aisles. My friend told him the library would be closing soon, and the guy nodded without saying much. That part was normal. What stood out was that when my friend passed the table again, a few minutes later, the notebook was gone, and the man was standing near the shelves. Instead, he looked like he was scanning the aisle markers instead of looking at books. When the closing announcement played, my friend started pushing a return cart through the stacks to make sure nobody was left behind. Halfway down one aisle, he heard something shift behind the shelves to his right. It sounded like a book sliding out and then going quiet again. He stepped into the cross aisle, expecting to see the man browsing, but the row was empty. He moved on and checked the next aisle. Same thing. Empty shelves and nobody around. That was strange because there were only a couple ways off that floor, and he had not seen anyone leave yet. He kept walking and reached the last row near the back staircase. As he turned the corner, he saw the man again, about 30 feet away, standing between 2 shelves. The guy was facing him directly this time. My friend said the way he stood there felt wrong, because he was not pretending to look at anything. He was just watching. My friend told him again that the building was closing and asked him to head downstairs toward the exit. The man nodded slowly and walked into the next aisle without saying a word. My friend finished checking the last couple rows and then pushed the cart back toward the main walkway. When he reached the middle of the floor, he heard a loud metal bang behind him, like something had hit a shelf. He turned around fast. The cart he had been pushing a second earlier was tipped slightly to the side, like someone had shoved it. No one was standing near it. He stepped back toward the cart and grabbed the handle to steady it. That was when he heard quick footsteps moving between the shelves, 2 aisles over. The sound stopped the moment he looked in that direction. My friend left the cart and started walking toward the staircase because the front desk lights were visible from there. When he reached the open area near the stairs, he glanced back across the stacks. The man was standing at the end of an aisle again, only this time he was much closer than before, maybe 20 feet away. My friend said the guy looked like he had been moving through the shelves while staying out of sight the whole time. He told the man again that the library was closed and pointed toward the stairs. The guy did not respond. Instead, he took one slow step forward into the main aisle. My friend did not wait to see what he would do next. He went straight down the stairs and told the desk staff someone was still upstairs, acting strange. 2 employees and a security guard went back up with him right away. But the entire floor was empty when they checked it. They looked through every row and even checked the study rooms, but nobody was there anymore. The exits had alarms that would sound if someone opened them after hours, and none of them had triggered. Security assumed the man must have slipped out before the floor was fully cleared. That seemed like the only explanation until they checked the camera footage the next day. The cameras showed the man walking into the second floor, stacks around 8:30, and moving between aisles several times while my friend was working. In the last clip, the man stepped behind a shelf seconds before my friend pushed the cart down that row. After that moment, the cameras never captured him leaving the stacks or going down the staircase. The strange part is that the footage kept recording for another 20 minutes while staff finished closing the building, and in one wide shot taken from the far end of the floor, you can see something else. The top edge of a shelf shifts slightly, like someone is leaning against it from the other side. Even though nobody is visible in the aisle, the movement happens right when my friend walks toward the stairs. The shelf stops moving a second later, like whoever was behind it decided not to step out. The cameras never showed anyone leaving after that. Security eventually assumed the man had slipped out through a door the cameras missed, but my friend still talks about the moment he looked across those shelves and realized the guy had been quietly moving through the stacks the whole time, trying to stay close without being seen. What bothered him the most later was something security mentioned offhand while reviewing the footage. In the earlier clips, the The man is not carrying anything when he enters the library, but in the last shot, where he steps behind the shelf, there is a long, narrow object in his hand that looks a lot like one of the heavy metal bookends taken from the stacks